It is March. Finally, March. The conference tournaments did not disappoint. We've already had a few upsets, so we are bringing to you FTS Bracketology. The boys, me and Lance, spent all weekend watching every team we could possibly get on TV, and we've got a good feeling about our predictions in some of these matchups. All right, we're going to start with the first round. I've got it here in front of me. We're going to highlight some of the key matchups that we think are going to be big moving forward in the tournament. We're not going to talk about every one of these, but we will highlight some of the key matchups. Excuse me. All right, we will start in the East. In the East, looking at the East,
It looks like it might be the toughest region in the tournament.
is the toughest region, in my opinion, in the tournament, which is odd considering that I feel like UConn
Is the number one overall.
is the number one overall seed.
But they got the Big East tournament champion, the Big 12 tournament champion, the Big 10 tournament champion, and the SEC tournament champion all in the same region.
So a lot of teams that caught fire at the end of the season. Looking at the East, however, I do not see many opponents that are going to be able to face that UConn team. They're tough.
They're just too good.
They're really well coached. Dan Hurley is probably the best college basketball coach in the game right now. They're well coached. They're disciplined. Got a great backcourt. They rebound well. They don't turn the ball over much. I mean, you know, it's just all around a sound basketball team. So looking at the East, Auburn could prove a tough opponent. If they can make it to the Sweet 16, that could be a tough opponent for UConn. You've got another tough, physical team that's big down low, rebounds a lot, good on the offensive glass, and they've got a couple guards who can shoot.
And Bruce Pearl is also a great coach.
A great coach. We saw that in the SEC tournament.
It's just going to come, like, Auburn's not a deep tournament team. They're not really like a Sweet 16, Elite 8 kind of team. Bruce Pearl's not that kind of coach. He hasn't been over the past few years. I don't know if they have anybody to shut down Klingon.
I think the way you're going to beat UConn this year is you've got to make shots.
You have to shoot.
You've got to be able to shoot the three.
You have to shoot. It's going to be tough to get inside. So if you can control the perimeter,
And that's one of my things. I think looking at a few of the matchups here, you don't have a lot of great shooting teams in the top part of the East bracket. So
you have, if they can get hot, you have Alabama. Alabama might be able to give them some trouble, but Alabama's just, they're not consistent enough, I think, to beat a team like that.
You're not going to see, you wouldn't see, Alabama's not even in the East
They're not?
region. They're in the West.
I'm thinking of the wrong region.
So
They're in North Carolina's region. That's right.
I would say, looking ahead to this, I've got UConn in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
I think out of that side of the bracket, to me, it's between San Diego State and Auburn.
Mm-hmm. San Diego State made a run last year, so they're built for it.
They're built for it, but college basketball teams change.
This is Auburn's year. They're not going to beat UConn, but they're going there.
I think they can make the Sweet 16, but I do see UConn being the team to beat in the East region. I see them making the Elite Eight at the bare minimum. Two of the teams that could give them some problems coming out of the bottom side of that region, meeting them in the Elite Eight, Illinois.
I really like Illinois. Terrence Shannon.
One of the best guards
He put up
in college basketball right now.
75, I think, in the semis in the Big Ten championship.
Combined.
So
40 and then 36, I think.
he can shoot.
He can shoot.
He can shoot.
And that's how you beat UConn. You got to be able to shoot. So I think Illinois could give them some grief if they can make it to the Elite Eight, but they've got another tough team that's coming hot off a great run in the Big 12 tournament in Iowa State. So don't look past Iowa State. I do think if we're talking upsets and higher seeds making deeper runs, the East is not the region to look at that for.
No.
I think the East, the Elite Eight will be boring in the sense that I think you're going to see 1 versus 3 or 1 versus 2. I don't really see that changing. If we move over to the South region, that's Houston's region. Again, a pretty tough region. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, North Carolina got the easiest region.
Yeah.
The West, to me, is the easiest region. if we're looking at the South, I mean, I don't see any 16 seeds pulling an upset this year. I think that was a little bit of a fluke last year. So I do have Houston moving on a first round matchup. The most intriguing matchup to me in the first round is going to be that 8-9 game, Nebraska versus Texas A&M. You got two teams who made deep runs in their conference tournaments.
They had pretty decent conference tournaments.
Nebraska is a good shooting team, I think, from what I've heard. I didn't get to watch any of them in the Big Ten tournament. I do know that Texas A&M is just a scrappy team.
They always have been. They're always that team.
They're going to play you tough. It's going to be a gritty game. I think that game comes down to turnovers.
Texas A&M's got good guard play.
So it's going to come down to turnovers for me. Who can control the turnover narrative? I think we all agreed here. We got Texas A&M.
Go Aggies.
Go Aggies. Moving on in that one. And I think it's going to be a tough opponent for a Houston team who put up 41 in their conference final.
Now, I think it was also just a bad shooting day for Houston. You know, they have those games. Let's see here. Yeah, Jamal Shedd went 3 of 17, and LJ Cryer, their two guards, he went 3 of 12.
You're going to have to be able to push the pace against that Houston team. They're good at controlling the flow of the game, the pace of the game, and they don't normally have to score a lot of points to beat you with how good that defense has been. So you've got to have one of your better shooting days to beat the number one team in the South region. Moving along, another interesting matchup is going to be number 6 Texas Tech versus number 11 NC State.
NC State, I think, is the hottest team in the entire tournament right now.
But did they use all of their magic to pull off one of the biggest upsets we've ever seen in the ACC tournament?
Because they've already beat Duke and North Carolina
And
the
they
past
won.
week.
It took them 5 wins to win the
5
ACC
days.
tournament. 5 wins in 5 days. It's tough to stay that hot. So I would love to say that's a Cinderella team this year, but I just think most of their magic has already been used. It is a team I think that could make a sneaky Sweet 16 run in the bottom of that bracket.
I like them. I like them against Texas Tech, but it's going to be really tough
To beat Kentucky.
against Kentucky.
Especially if Coach Cal has got them boys ready. It's a well-coached team. It always is. It's always a very talented team.
Their defense is a little lackluster this year, but they've got. I think they'll both end up being top 5, at least top 10, if not top 5 guards. Rob Dillingham, who is
Lights out.
is good enough already. He's been brought on to stage with Drake, and Reed Shepherd. I think they're both freshman guards. They're buckets.
Might be 2 one-and-dones.
They will be because Rob's going to be a top 5 pick, and I think Reed will be a top 10 pick.
First round for sure. So looking at the South region, I think this might be one of the most wide open regions in my opinion.
Because, even you look at, Marquette's the 2 seed. Marquette is not a bad team. The Big East, it was not shown love in the tournament, but it was a good conference.
It was a good conference.
Yeah.
Marquette's got length. I think from what you laughing at?
Nothing.
Laughing at length.
Now, they had a bad March. They lost to Creighton. They lost to UConn twice. They
One
beat
being the Big East
tournament
championship.
yeah. But, they're still a good team. I could see them. Who do they play? They play Western Kentucky, and then they would line up against Florida or the 10 seed. I could see them going to the Sweet 16.
All right, so we've got an interesting Sweet 16 matchup for you here in the South. This is going to be where we kind of pick one of our upsets. We've got number 9 Texas A&M beating Houston. Correct?
Yes.
We all agreed on that. We got the Aggies being one of the Cinderella stories to the Sweet 16 this year. With the Aggies in the Sweet 16 this year, I don't know how far they'll go, but they are my team in the tournament. Duke, they did not, same as Marquette, did not have a great March. They still have one of the best players in basketball in Kyle Filipowski. They've got Jeremy Roach, who has been in the tournament multiple times. He's a veteran guy. He knows what it takes to win in the tournament. Coached by Coach K before he left. You've also got the other guard.
Jared McCain.
Jared McCain, who is a freshman, so you can't put the weight of the world on his shoulders. But at times, he has shown flashes of being somebody who could have a great tournament game or two. I think they take care of Vermont. I do think James Madison or Wisconsin could prove a difficult matchup for them. Just James Madison being as hot as they are, and they've got shooters. Wisconsin made a deep run in their tournament, so they are hot right now. But I do see Duke making it to the Sweet 16 this year. We're gonna have Duke and A&M in the South Region Sweet 16 at the top part of the bracket. At the bottom, you've got to go Marquette. I think has got to be your team coming out the very, very bottom of that. You could look at a few teams.
Currently I have Kentucky. I've got Marquette and Kentucky.
Okay, so you've got NC State's run ending in the round of 32.
Yeah,
against just a more talented, probably better coached. We can all agree John Calipari is one of those dudes, better coached.
Now, Kentucky's defense, like I said, is weak. So it could happen because the two DJs on NC State, DJ Horn and DJ Burns, they can
monsters down low.
They can score, but if it's going to be a shootout, if it's going to be like in the 90s, I expect Kentucky to pull it out.
Put up the points.
I just don't know if NC State, like you said, can continue the magic. They've expended so much energy winning 5 games in 5 days, and then they don't have the easiest path in the world, so it'll be interesting to see. But I do have Kentucky.
We've got a 2 versus 3 in the bottom part of that Sweet 16 and a 9 versus 4 in the top part. Real quickly, our Elite 8 matchup. I'm going to say Duke. Given the path, I think if they have to play Houston, I think if Houston doesn't get knocked out like they normally do, they're just not a team that normally makes that deep run when they should. If Duke had to face a Houston in the Sweet 16, I think it's going to be tough because they have struggled at times to shoot the ball this year, and against the nation's best defense, it's going to be tough. But if they see A&M, which I think they will, that's going to be my upset. I got Duke making it to the Elite 8. And I'm honestly going to take, I think if they make it as far as the Sweet 16, I'm going to ride the hot hand in a team that can score. I've got Kentucky. Kentucky-Duke is going to be my Elite 8 matchup in the South region. Look for Texas A&M to make some noise, like we said.
That's going to be a really good game, too, if Kentucky and Duke match up, because, when you get blue bloods playing in
Blue
the
Bloods?
Blue Buds, they're not buddies. They're not friends.
All right, that's the South region. Let's move over let's go to, I want to save the easiest region, like I said, in my opinion, which is the West for last. So let's go Midwest. Purdue currently does not have their opponent. They're waiting on a bubble game, one of the last 4 in.
But it ain't going to be Fairleigh Dickinson, so.
It's not going to be Fairleigh Dickinson, unfortunately, this year. Not a lot of Fairleigh Dick to go around. Let's go. I'm going to highlight a matchup that I think a lot of people are going to overlook, which is McNeese versus Gonzaga. Every single year since 2008, we've had a double-digit seed reach the Sweet 16. I've got 2 in my head based on their past that I could see. I'll give you the second one when we get to the West region, and if you're listening up to this point, you might be able to already pinpoint kind of where I'm going in the West. But in the Midwest, McNeese is going to be my upset. I've got that 5 versus 12. Gonzaga just is not, they don't have that dog this year. In years past, they've had some real tournament stars like Drew Timme,
a Jalen Suggs.
They've had those guys who just have like that it. Like you get in those gritty games and you need those buckets, you need that defense, and those guys provide it. I don't see it from Gonzaga this year. I don't see it. They're not a great 5 seed, in my opinion. And McNeese is just a hot team right now.
And Will Wade is a great coach.
Great coach.
He has fairly deep March Madness experience. He took LSU to the Sweet 16 a few years ago.
So I've got McNeese upsetting Gonzaga in the first round.
He can do it. And if Kansas is not healthy,
Samford could be another one to look at. Don't overlook Samford in this one.
Especially if they don't have Dickinson. Because he's just such a presence in the front court. It's if they don't have him, there's no one else really in the country that can provide that kind of presence, and that doesn't become an advantage for Kansas anymore. It's just kind of a toss up.
It's going to be
Kansas
tough.
and Sanford. Also, I don't think we should be overlooking Utah State in that 8 seed spot. Utah State has been ranked for 2 months, and they for some reason they did not win their championship. They lost in the championship, but Joe Lunardi. Some people were thinking they could maybe snag a 6, and they fall into an 8. They're good. They're a pretty good Mountain West team, and Purdue in the past few years has not shown up in the tournament. And other than Edey, that team's not really built for a run. So I think, if Utah State can get past TCU, it'll be an interesting game. I don't know if they can pull it off.
out. Edey has seemed to have been able to carry them against lesser talented opponents.
Also, I don't know if either one of you have seen this, but Purdue, the refs love Purdue.
I've been paying attention to them.
I've seen some replays and some calls. Like, there have been, like, this dude is, when they played Wisconsin, was going up for a layup, and Edey had him, like, here on both arms. The dude was like, no foul. And it was like a 32-9 difference in terms of free throws. Purdue had the advantage.
They're like the Celtics of college basketball.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Because of Zach Edey.
Yeah.
One of the best players, probably going to be the Naismith Player of the Year again.
Mm-hmm.
He's already won it once.
I believe he won it last year.
So yeah, they're kind of giving him that MVP treatment,
But
that Joel treatment.
this might be the most interesting region out of all of them.
I just feel like from top to bottom, there's so many teams that I could see making a run.
Because Tennessee,
Even all the way down to like a St. Peter's. Tennessee's coming off 2 bad losses. An early round exit against the 11 seed, I think, the 9 seed in the SEC in Mississippi State. And then right before that, they lost a bad game at the end of the regular season as well. I don't know if St. Peter's is going to make another magical run this year. Tennessee can score. Dalton Connect is one of the best shooters in the country.
I think for Tennessee, it'll be either one of two things. They'll either get bounced by St. Peter's, or they'll get bounced in the second round, or this is a team that I think can make a Final Four run. It just depends on what kind of Tennessee team we get.
I don't want to overlook Texas either, though.
Yeah, Texas is a really good team.
Texas is a good basketball team this year.
They played in the Big 12, so they're battle tested.
I just haven't gotten to watch much of them this year, so I don't know much.
The only thing I don't like about Tennessee is how much they rely on
Dalton Connect.
On Dalton Connect.
Because he had a bad game against Mississippi State. The rest of the team had a bad game. So for him to show up night in and night out and drop 30 is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
But the 3 seed Creighton, they can shoot the rock. They got a really, I think he's their 4. His name's Baylor Shireman. He's one of the best players in the Big East. That South Carolina-Oregon game is going to be really good. Oregon played well in the Pac-12 tournament and got him a spot. And then teams like Kansas, Gonzaga. I mean, it's going to be a pretty competitive
I think this is the
region.
toughest to pick out an Elite 8 matchup here, but I'm going to try. I'm looking at this. I don't think Purdue's built for a run. Now, do I think they're going to get bounced by a 16 seed again? No. And do I think a Utah State or a TCU is going to beat them? No, I do not. Here's where it gets interesting. I've got McNeese beating Gonzaga. I can't give you an exact upset yet because I don't know where the health of Kansas is going to stand.
But even at the beginning, or not the beginning of the Big 12 tournament, towards the end of the regular season, they can, if Dickinson's not playing well, if they don't have Kevin McCullough playing very well, that team just seems out of sorts. Like they don't really
Very beatable. So I'm going to give you guys a 13 versus 12 matchup
for the
in the round of 32. I've got McNeese playing Samford. I've got Purdue playing Utah State in the second round. I think Utah State gets taken care of. I think Purdue is just too talented, especially with Zach Edey, man, on the floor. So I've got Purdue. I haven't thought about this matchup too much yet. I had this matchup in my head, but I haven't thought about it too much yet. I'm going to have Purdue versus McNeese.
Okay.
That's gonna be my double digit
Sweet
16 team. Because of that road for Purdue, I could see Purdue making an Elite Eight this year. I could. I think even if Kansas or Gonzaga wins those matchups as the higher seed, I think Purdue could still take care of those. But I've got 12 versus 13. I've got Purdue taking care of McNeese to make it out of the Sweet 16 and finally get to where they should be, which is an Elite Eight this year. The bottom of this bracket is so tough. It's so tough. It's probably the most competitive that we've seen so far. I've got Creighton facing Oregon.
You've got Oregon. I've got South Carolina.
I've got Oregon. I think Creighton moves on to the Sweet 16. I've got Texas in my Sweet 16. I don't know why.
You're a big Texas guy.
I'm a big Texas guy. I think because Tennessee.
You a big Texas guy too, Joe?
Yeah, I mean they're scrappy this year. They just don't got it. They gotta avoid getting into like the scraps, and they've had like 2 or 3 of them this year, haven't they?
A few fights this year.
They do have Max Asmus, one of the best scorers. He's got tournament experience. He was the leader on Oral Roberts when they upset Ohio State.
My problem with Tennessee is that they're so Dalton Connect driven. If he's not playing well, that team struggles to score the rock. And I think St. Peter's is going to give them some problems.
You think St. Peter's is going to win?
I don't think St. Peter's is going to win, but I think we're going to have to see like vintage Connect in this game. I don't know if he's going to be able to string together 2 30-point performances, 2 35-plus performances. So I've got Texas and Creighton in my Sweet 16.
Who are you taking to the Elite Eight?
I think last year a bunch of high seeds going real deep in the tournament is a little unlikely this year. I feel like we might have had just kind of a fluke year last year. But I'm taking Texas.
Okay.
I'm taking Purdue versus Texas in my Elite Eight this year. What do you got? What's your Elite Eight in that side of the tournament?
I'm big on Tennessee.
Okay.
I'm big on Tennessee. I like Connect. I like their other guard, Santiago Vescovi.
Adu is good.
He's been there for a long time. Adu provides them some presence as a center, and he scores pretty well for a college center. He averages like 12 a game. And if they play consistently, they play well, they play up to the Tennessee standards that they have this year. I know Tennessee's not usually a March team, but I like them. And if they're healthy, I'm going to be honest, I like Kansas. If McCullough and Dickinson have no limitations in the tournament, I think that's a very good starting 5. And I think they can beat Gonzaga or McNeese, and I think they can beat a Purdue. Because I think Dickinson and Edey would feed families. It would save.
That's probably that side of the.
It would save people who need to be saved. It'd be cinema. Dickinson versus Edey. So I like.
So you got Kansas, Tennessee.
Yes, if Dickinson and McCullough have no limitations.
So my only issue right now is I like Kansas. They've got a tournament coach.
If they're hurt, if Dickinson or McCullough are not in the tournament or not 100%, I still have Tennessee. Just give me Purdue.
Okay, so we're close. We're close there. Purdue and Tennessee, Purdue and Texas. I don't know why. I've got a good feeling about Texas this year. It's kind of seemed like it's been the year of Texas so far. Seems like Texas is back. So we'll see. I get a 1 versus 7 in my Midwest Elite Eight. So a couple. Mine's been interesting so far this year. It normally is. I feel like you have to think a little bit outside of the box when it comes to March because it never pans out the way it should.
Something always outside of the box
So
happens.
I'm just take it or leave it. I'm giving you guys some outside of the box thinking. All right, finally, move over to, as I mentioned before, the easiest side of the bracket, in my opinion.
It looks like the easiest.
North Carolina will be Sweet 16 bound. I don't have any questions about that. Mississippi and Michigan State are not going to give them any problems. I think Mississippi State is the tougher matchup. They're a little bit more gritty. They've got some good guard play. They rebound the ball well. They play with a lot of defensive intensity, which is something that North Carolina does. So I think if you can match them on that end of the floor, it'll be interesting. But I do think North Carolina's got probably the easiest Sweet 16 outlook of any team in the tournament. I do think Alabama can give them some problems.
Just with the way they score and the way they run an offense is just.
But they're going to have to put up 100 to beat North Carolina.
And they got to get past either St. Mary's or Grand Canyon first.
Both of who are going to be dangerous teams this year.
I think. I don't know. I haven't seen much of Grand Canyon. I can't really comment. I've watched a couple St. Mary's games. It's just your typical fundamental basketball team. They rely a little bit more on the three, so that I think it could be an interesting matchup, Alabama St. Mary's. But unless they just go cold, I think I expect Alabama. They're the number one offense in the country. They average over 90 points a game for a college team, which is pretty solid.
I think we could see a 1-4 in the Sweet 16 in the West region. I think Alabama does pose a threat to North Carolina again, though.
Only if
they're hot,
and only I feel like if RJ Davis isn't scoring.
You've got to lock up one of them. The problem we saw at the end of the season when Duke played North Carolina was that you can lock up Baycott, which they did. RJ Davis played well. He didn't have a huge game, but then you left that white dude open.
Yeah.
That dropped 38.
Cormac Ryan.
Cormac Ryan dropped like 38, made like 8 threes, 9 threes.
And those are the kind of teams that go on runs. If you have depth,
it's just it's a deep team.
If your star player is not playing well and you have someone else you can rely on.
And they flipped the script on a typical North Carolina team. Normally, North Carolina is offense first.
Yeah.
They're going to beat you by scoring. They have flipped that this year. They are one of the best defensive teams in the country. And they still score. So that's a complete team. They're going to be tough to beat. The bottom of that region is a little bit more interesting.
I don't love Clemson being a 6 seed.
I think New Mexico beats them.
I think New Mexico is a real threat to Clemson. I don't hate Baylor. I haven't seen them rise to the occasion yet this season.
Yeah, they've been very lackluster in like clutch moments to me.
Or like a big time game, you just don't know.
They just disappear a little bit, especially towards the end. I don't think Dayton or Nevada pose any threat.
They're not doing anything.
Arizona, to me, is just one of those teams.
Arizona, to me, right now is like Tennessee. It's going to be one of two things. They're going to lose in the second round or they're going to make a run. It runs through Caleb Love. If they do it, we got
the Caleb Love game.
We got the Caleb Love game potentially in the Elite Eight.
I've got Arizona and Baylor in my Sweet 16.
Okay.
I liked New Mexico. But I think personally, a team like McNeese, with the road that they're on, especially if my 2 upsets happen, bless you, which I think they do have a chance. I think McNeese over Gonzaga, I feel great about. My Samford pick is a team that's been hot. I've seen a lot of people talking about them. Watch out for an upset. And I can't speak yet to whether Kansas is going to be healthy or not. By the way, this is filmed on Monday. The tournament starts on Thursday, by the way. So we're a little early, I guess, in a sense, which is why I think McNeese and Sanford could be playing in that second round.
Game.
I think that is where my double-digit Sweet 16 seed comes from, is going to be the Midwest. We were talking about it a little bit before we started recording this, and I thought New Mexico had a chance. I just think Baylor they're too well coached, I feel like, to lose to an 11 seed this year. Scott Drew is a top 5, easily top 8 coach in college basketball. And it's just a talented team. So I've got number 2 facing number 3 in the bottom of the West bracket in Baylor versus Arizona.
So it looks like at least the one guy's going to play for Kansas.
Hunter Dickinson's been practicing.
Okay,
so
that might change.
You should have Dickinson.
Might change it up a little bit for me. I don't know, man. I like McNeese. I don't know why. So I've got 2 playing 3. I got Baylor versus Arizona in the Sweet 16 in this one. facing off against North Carolina and Alabama. This one's going to be another bit of a boring conference to me in the sense of I got North Carolina in the Elite Eight. I think that's a Final Four team to me. I've got North Carolina in the Elite Eight, and maybe it's just wishful thinking because I want to see it. I've got them finally doing what they're supposed to do. I've got Arizona in the Elite Eight. I've got the Caleb Love game. I got 1 versus 2 in the West. What are your thoughts on that?
I also have Arizona. I just think Dayton and Nevada are not
They just don't
posing
pose
a
big enough
threat.
threats.
And I think, if it comes down to Baylor, I think Arizona is a better team than Baylor. I think they'll win. I will have Alabama in the Elite Eight. Just with the offense. Some people are counting them out this year. Like, this team's not really built for a run.
I'm not counting them out. I just think North Carolina, to me personally, North Carolina is the best team in the tournament right now. UConn is great. They're a great basketball team, but repeating in March is one of the hardest things to do in sports. I think it came down to it. North Carolina is the most complete team set up for the deepest run, in my opinion.
I think we're gonna get kind of like a legacy game from Alabama here, and I think they're gonna upset North Carolina. It'll be
We'll
one
see.
Of,
I mean, that's a long run for Alabama this year. A team that is really streaky, that has to beat you by. I mean, obviously you have to outscore your opponent to win, but they have to beat you by outscoring you. They will not defend better than you. They won't. And I just think you're going to have to be Charleston, I think, is kind of a gimme game for Alabama. I don't think we can overlook St. Mary's or Grand Canyon. I think either team could give Alabama some issues. And then at that point, I just don't think they're going to have enough offense to beat such a complete team in North Carolina. All right, so if we look back, we're going to give you our Final Four predictions because we want to give them to you before the tournament starts. I had UConn. And Illinois. The Fighting Illini in my Elite Eight. In the East region, give me UConn.
Yeah.
As my team out of the East.
Give me UConn.
You have to. Again, we talked about it. I'm not going to circle back to it. UConn. Give me UConn in the Final Four. All right. My South region.
North Carolina.
Elite Eight.
South.
Was Duke and Kentucky. I think we both agreed on that, right? Duke and Kentucky, 3 versus 4.
Give me Kentucky.
It's a little bit of my fan bias coming in here. Give me Duke. Give me Duke. I think that'll be a fantastic game. Either way, I don't think there's any way we're disappointed by a 3 versus 4, 2 blue bloods going at it. But I'm going to take Duke. So give me Duke.
Lance is he's got a pretty good track record when it comes to pick'ems.
This isn't a pick'em though. This is just bracketology. So, all right. So that puts my Final Four so far at UConn and Duke. Going to the Midwest region. This one's the toughest one I think to pick.
Give me Tennessee.
In the Final Four? Wow.
Yeah.
See, based on the way I set this up, Purdue versus Texas, Purdue's probably the better team. So I'm going to walk it back a little bit because I think Texas has the potential to beat Tennessee, but I don't think they can beat Purdue, and I don't think Purdue's a Final Four team this year. So I'll walk it back a little bit. Give me Tennessee to be in the Final Four as well. All right, and then in the West, I don't have a lot of shakeup here. My Final Four team out of the West is going to be North Carolina.
Give me Arizona.
Okay. So if you're paying attention here, my Final Four, the two teams playing out of the eastern side of the bracket, my matchup is going to be UConn versus... Do they still do highest seed versus lowest seed? Or is it just...
No, it's just region.
Okay. So...
East versus West in the Final Four.
Yeah, UConn versus UNC.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I've got UConn versus Arizona.
I've got UConn versus UNC, and I've got Duke versus Tennessee.
I have
UConn versus Arizona,
And Kentucky versus
and
UConn,
Kentucky
Tennessee.
versus Tennessee.
Kentucky versus Tennessee. Give me Arizona to beat UConn, and give me Kentucky or Tennessee. Give me Tennessee.
All right, give me a matchup that's going to feed families. North Carolina's beating UConn. The team's built for it. I think they got beat by UConn last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Who?
Duke or UNC.
I don't remember. UConn went on a dominant run last year. They beat everybody by like 15 plus.
Maybe it wasn't last year, but give me UNC to beat UConn, and give me the matchup that has fed families for generations. Give me Duke to beat Tennessee.
So North
Give me
Carolina
UNC Duke
in the championship.
in the championship.
Duke in the championship is kind of funny.
If they were in the East, Duke's not coming out. If they were in the Midwest, I see a few teams down there that are not coming out. But if they can get through the South, which I think it's set up well for them to, it's a team that historically, if you can get out of the first and second round, makes deep runs. And I think that is a matchup that everybody on earth
would want to see.
is UNC
I'd
versus
pay
Duke
to see
this
that
year.
game.
So yeah, give me UNC Duke in the national championship this year. Give me a 1 versus a 4. I just don't see a 5, 6, 7 seed personally in the Final Four again this year. I think that was a fluke year. So give me UConn, UNC, Duke, and Tennessee.
It's gonna be funny when Duke loses to Wisconsin in the second round.
Yeah, it would be it'd be a very me thing too for like my bracket. It's normally how it works, but that's what I got. All right, that is going to conclude FTS Bracketology. We're going to talk about March, all of March, and all the way through the tournament. So we'll have a special segment dedicated to that that's going to be out every week. So check it out. Let us know what your predictions are down below. Drop us your Final Four predictions. Let us know what you thought of ours. Tell us who you've got in the championship. Tell us who's your winner this year. Let's make it interesting. We're going to put together a tournament challenge too, by the way, an FTS tournament challenge. So if you guys want to compete against the boys, feel free. Obviously, it's free to enter, so you can just hop in.
We'll include the link
And
in
play.
the description.
We'll include the link in the description. You'll be playing against me, Lance. We're each going to put in our own submissions. Joe is going to pop one in there as well, and we'll probably have Jack throw one in as well. All right, that's going to conclude Bracketology for this week. Peace.